Hey guys, MC82 here, and I just wanted to give some quick thoughts on the departure of Jeff Gerstmann from Giant Bomb. And I know that's unlike anything else that I do on this channel, considering that I just review statues and collectibles, although not very often. But when I read the news earlier this week, it kind of hit me because I have known Giant Bomb, Jeff Gerstmann, and the original GameSpot crew ever since its inception in 2008. And I also knew about them back at GameSpot on the spot. That's where I originally was introduced to them. And even back then, I could see that they had great chemistry with one another. And it was kind of a rotating cast and crew. And I think Vinny was the host for a little while, and so was Rich Gallup. By the way, I don't really have any notes in front of me, so if I get any of these names or details wrong, just call me out in the comments. Do it respectfully, please. But so I'm just kind of going off the cuff here about my feelings on the situation. I was really happy to see Jeff Gerstmann leave GameSpot because he was standing up for his principles. And obviously the Gerstmann Gate, which was essentially Jeff not bowing down to advertising and corporate pressure over several reviews, not the least of which is Kane and Lynch review, saw him leave the company and go start a new podcast, Arrow Pointing Down, which eventually evolved into Giant Bomb. And he, along with Ryan Davis, helped grow and cultivate that into something where others caught on, like Brad Shoemaker and Vinny Caravella, and they joined them. And that crew down in the basement in, I believe, Sausalito, or maybe it was Petaluma, maybe it's Sausalito, I don't know. Once again, people in the comments, let me know. That was an interesting time. I remember thinking, I wish I could be with those guys. They seemed like they were just having a time of their lives, starting something new and showing the industry that, hey, we can cover games in a different way. We don't have to sit here and write 5 and 6 page reviews on games and do these long previews. That's not to say that they didn't do anything like that, but they were really the pioneers of what we see today with people streaming games and giving their thoughts, personality-driven content, things that we essentially take for granted today because it's all over the place with like YouTube and Switch and Facebook. But they really pushed or kicked the door open to what we enjoy today. And they were under Whiskey Media, if I recall, and they did something fairly unique for the time to fund their website. They relied on you and me, their fans. And they created the Giant Bomb subscription. And they would have yearly or annual shows to kind of promote the idea of why you want to, subscribe to their premium content. And I was a subscriber for a couple of years. I enjoyed their shows. I enjoyed their personalities. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. And Whiskey Media had to essentially fold, or at least let go a lot of its properties, and Jeff and company found themselves in a bit of conundrum. And so they ended up selling Giant Bomb, or I should say they ended up being acquired by CBSI, who ironically owned GameSpot, the very company that led to the creation of Giant Bomb, at least their ousters. And I remember that stream that they had over at, I believe, Dave Snyder's house, where they were eating pancakes. And on one hand, I was proud of them because they were finally going to get the money, the backing, the funding that they really needed to take the site to the levels that they couldn't take it under Whiskey Media. But on another hand, I was sad because I said to myself, this can't end well. If they're essentially going back to the same corporate structure that led to their departures originally. And I think anyone who has worked in corporate America long enough knows that while they always say that, hey, oh, don't worry, you'll still have independence, you'll still be able to do what you want to do, we'll stay out of the way, we're just going to sit back and fund you. We all know that doesn't hold true for very long, and in some cases it doesn't hold true at all. But initially it seemed like things were okay. They had the right funding, they had the right people, and then tragically Ryan Davis passed away. And I won't dwell on that for too long, other than it obviously hit the site hard. It hit me hard. I have never met the guy, but he provided hours upon hours of entertainment and laughs. I miss his presence on the internet, and I'm sure they all still do as well. The site wasn't the same, but it still held up, and it still continued with, smart additions like Patrick Klepek, Dan Reichard. They had some misses too. I won't say who. This is not a hit piece or anything like that. I don't want to trash anybody. But the site kept going, and I still followed them. And the Bombcast was not as good, but it was still really good. I still got a lot of laughs on the Bombcast. Probably more laughs than any movie or television show outside of Married with Children. But slowly but surely, Jeff and company would kind of sneak in little things that kind of expressed their frustration behind the scenes. Sometimes you would hear that they didn't have time for certain things because they had to address other issues with the higher ups, or they'd have meetings that they'd have to attend, or just all the things that kind of come with working in corporate America. And so it became a situation where I was like, I hope this is not heading to where I think it is. Fortunately, it didn't, at least not initially. Vinny and company eventually had to move back to the East Coast, and so they split up and became Giant Bomb East and Giant Bomb West. I never really liked this format. I understood why it was necessary. Lives change, but there's something about the chemistry among people in the same room that you never can get from people on a Zoom meeting. And so I still kept up with the site, I still followed it, but it was losing something. No matter who they brought in or no matter who left, it just wasn't the same. But that's okay, because they still had the original guys and they held it together. And then late 2020, early 2021 happened, and Red Ventures acquired Giant Bomb. And soon you saw people leave. Among them, Brad, Vinny, and Alex. And they went and started Nextlander, which is a great podcast, a great YouTube channel, and great show. But I was kind of devastated over this. I was like, well, I don't know how I can look at this site as Giant Bomb. Jeff's still there, and that's great. But for me, Giant Bomb, even though Giant Bomb's statement says otherwise, and we'll get to that statement here in a bit, Giant Bomb really is about certain people and personalities. And for me, it was about Jeff Gerstmann, Brad Shoemaker, Vinny Caravella, Ryan Davis, and I'll even throw in Drew Scanlon, and Alex Navarro, and their extended crew of friends and ex-coworkers. That to me was Giant Bomb. The personalities that drove that site were the personalities that left GameSpot, or at least had something to do with it. So to have those three leave last year really kind of put a nail in the coffin for me as far as following Giant Bomb. I was already kind of teetering, but that really put the final nail. I wondered, though, where Jeff's mind was at that point, because he had lost 3 of his closest comrades, I'll say. And you wondered if his heart was still in it. I imagine he stayed on to help transition in the new cast of characters that Giant Bomb would have going forward. But I always wondered if Jeff would kind of put aside his... I imagine there had to be some ego there. He started the site, he built the site, he watched it grow. I imagine if Jeff would put aside his ego and finally say enough is enough. I have to leave. I have to leave this behind. And it looks like he finally did. Now I'll get to Giant Bomb's statement. Giant Bomb's statement was one of the most cold, corporate, ugly pieces of bullshit I've ever read. They talked about Jeff and his contributions for maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs, and the rest of it was basically pleading for you to stay, you being the viewer, to stay and subscribe. They have a new team of people, including bringing back Dan Reichert. I don't know this cast all that well. I do know Dan, obviously. I don't think Dan works very well when he's not bouncing off the right people. And by the right people, I mean the original crew. But at the same time, he's done pretty well for himself outside of Giant Bomb. So I think he'll be a good pickup for them. As far as Jeff, he has announced on his Twitch channel that he has started the Jeff Gerstmann show, which in many ways seems like starting Giant Bomb all over again, even though he will be solo and he'll have guests from time to time. I imagine this will be Jeff in his final form, so to speak, what he always really wanted to do without the corporate overlords. That was hard to say. I'm still a little sad that Giant Bomb had to come to an end. I know that they say that this is not Giant Bomb 2.0, but it is. Because as I said before, Giant Bomb really was about certain people. And without those people, it's not Giant Bomb anymore. It might as well be a different website. They should just change their name. I know they're not going to, but still. I think, though, that we can all sit back and smile and realize that there is a happy ending to all of this. And that happy ending is that Jeff and the crew are now getting to do what they love without the pressures of corporate America. And you, the viewer, you can rest easy knowing that you are supporting them directly through the various means that they have to be supported. It's sad that they're not all together anymore, but hey, nothing lasts forever. Times change. People change. Maybe they can guest star on each other's podcasts at some point. It'll be a nice little reunion. It's sad that for the very reasons why all of them left GameSpot, the irony is that those are the same reasons why they had to leave Giant Bomb. You could argue that if they had to leave GameSpot maybe 5 to 10 years later, they perhaps could have done what Greg Miller and company did in starting Kind of Funny, and they could have been crowdsourced in that way. And maybe the site would still be alive with them behind the wheels, so to speak. But all of this happened back in the late 2000s when crowdfunding and places like YouTube and Twitch, while they were around, they certainly were not what they are today. Still, there is a happy ending. They get to do what they love to do, and they don't have to be under the boot of corporate America. And for that, I think we can all appreciate it. So those are my thoughts. I knew I'd kind of be all over the place. Apologies if there's any hissing in the background. There's raining behind me, or outside. I'm acting like I'm outside, but it's raining outside. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts? I know, once again, this is not something that I normally do on the channel, but I felt like I needed to get this off my chest because I've followed those guys since I was in college. Now I'm in my 40s, which makes me feel really old. Oh my goodness. I guess I just had a moment there. But yeah, I hope that whatever happens to all of those guys going forward, it's at least nice to know that they all landed on their feet. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.